I feel like I should just be talking when it comes on. It's like sort of there it is.
Hey everyone, welcome to the PLX Fireside Chat, where product-led and partner-led collide. I'm Joe Kevins. I'm the Director of Demand Gen at PartnerStack, and it's great to be here with Adam Schoenfeld, the analyst and co-founder of PureSignal. Quick intro for those of you that don't know Adam. He's publishing great data-driven research on how today's B2B SaaS companies are going to market. He's a 3 times founder. Adam, thank you for taking the time to share your insight with the partner community.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Really excited, and I'm excited to learn from all the other sessions today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, our pleasure. I think just to kind of set the scene in some context, kind of why we're here chatting today. Pure Signal for about a year and a half now, you guys have been looking into B2B SaaS, go to market, and PLG in particular, product led growth. And PartnerStack, for us, we're interested in companies that are doing that B2B SaaS, PLG, and we want to know how the partnerships kind of collide there. So that's kind of how our worlds collided and this partner-led, product-led collision happened.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're going to dive into that, and then the 3 main things we'll go through today. It's why PLG, why now? What does PLG mean for partnerships, and then what do the partner programs and partnerships look like in PLG? Like what is the data telling us from what Adam and the PureSignal team has been doing? So
Yeah,
I guess
and
with that,
Joe and I pulled a couple stats last night, and we are going back and forth on Slack. So hopefully those are useful.
yeah.
I hadn't studied it a ton, but it's definitely piqued my interest more. Like Joe said, at Pure Signal, we collect data on what B2B SaaS companies are doing. Um, I actually started it. I was taking time off. I had founded a couple companies. My last one sold to Drift, and after 3 really good years there, I needed a break. And I was getting really interested in product-led growth. So not really knowing what I wanted to do, I started Pure Signal as a way to learn like what are product-led companies doing. And I think it's a super interesting theme right now, right? Like for those of us who have been around through these waves of inbound and ABM, there's always like a acronym of the week. It feels like in our world, but I think product-led growth, like the principles and the ideas there, are super compelling. So yeah, excited to dig into this topic.
Yeah. I mean, and on that note, maybe since we've already thrown around a few acronyms, B2B, PLG, SaaS, should we should we fire up that poll? Is your company
Let's do
doing
it.
PL?
Yeah, I'm curious where people are at on this, because you get, depending on the audience, you get a big mixed bag. Look at this polling feature right here. This whole virtual event space has just gotten way better.
Okay.
All right. Are you seeing the answers? You must be seeing them.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm seeing it's about 2/3 split right now. 2/3 yes, doing PLG. We got one
I
vote
was
for
in WTF a year and a half ago, for sure.
yeah. We got a
I was
yeah.
in WTF. It's funny because we talk about product-led growth, PLG. I think OpenView Ventures really kind of coined this term a few years ago, but I think back to my SaaS company that I was building in 2010, 2011, and we had freemium, we had free trial. It just wasn't called that. So it's interesting. Like nothing really new in the world. People have been doing free samples and kind of some of the ideas here forever. But I think it's really kind of gotten into popularity recently. Like we were talking about this, Joe, the other day.
Mhm,
If you look at the Cloud 100, right? It's like 3/4 of them in this year's report are product led, which is
mhm.
pretty staggering. And if you look at like these stories that keep popping up, Slack a few years ago and their huge exit, and then kind of all these IPOs recently. If you think of Datadog and DocuSign, and now Figma getting bought by Adobe, it's kind of crazy. I think how much of the SaaS, the outliers on the good side of SaaS, are really like exemplifying the PLG model right now.
Yeah, love it. I love how you already jumped to a tease of
Sorry,
some of
sorry.
that data you're showing with the Forbes 100. I guess maybe just before we dive into kind of why PLG, why now, and what it is, like, um, just kind of quickly a little bit more on Pure Signal, because I think you've got some compelling data sets there. With you've got B2B SaaS growth companies, you've also got PLG companies. Maybe like help us understand how you define a PLG company, what it means to Pure Signal when you're researching that, um,
Mhm.
and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was taking some time off, kind of between jobs, and I've always been obsessed with B2B sales and marketing, for better or worse, through like all these phases of evolution in the market. And the way I've always liked to learn this stuff is to dig up role models and examples and try to like unpack what they're doing and think about why, and sort of understand the biography of a company and what's happening there. I mean, there's a lot of great opinions and you should do this, you should do that kind of content out there, but I thought this like examples and hard data was missing a little bit in this space.
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, well, I'll put together a list of PLG companies and I'll collect a bunch of data about that and I'll refresh it monthly. And that was how Pure Signal started. We since, after starting with about 300 PLG companies, we now track about 2,000 B2B SaaS companies. There are more than 2,000 B2B SaaS companies, right? We just have a very high bar of curation before we'll add them to our indexes. So we're kind of slowly building it up. And about 650 of those we've verified, like by our definition, are PLG, which means that you can sort of try, use, or buy the product without talking to somebody, which isn't all that PLG is, right? There's a lot of principles that go into it, but it's a good litmus test for a crawler to go look around on a website and say, hey, do we think this is a PLG company? And so when you come to Pure Signal, you can for free get into those data sets. We have these Airtables where you can kind of filter and sort on different dimensions, like how big is the company and what offers do they have on their website and how fast are they growing and how big is their sales team. And that's a good way to kind of dig in and find role models that you might want to study. Like if you're thinking about pursuing a
Hmm.
certain strategy, you can find probably examples or role models for just about any slice of SaaS that you're interested in.
Yeah. Jill Rowley said in the chat, B2B SaaS nerds unite. That's pretty spot on. I think anyone who whose interest was piqued, go to Pure Signal and kind of check out the free data sets that Adam has.
Yes, it's
They're
very nerdy, so beware. There's a lot of columns in there. If that's not your thing, then you're in the
Yeah,
wrong place.
that's right. Yeah. Um, yeah, and it's interesting that you're kind of practicing what you preach too. I mean, it looks like you're taking kind of a product-led growth approach yourself. You're kind of leading with your data sets, and um, is that something that you were doing this product-led approach in your previous startups, or is it something you're kind of seeing it's now a better fit for the current time and moment in Pure Signal?
Yeah, I definitely think I want to use those principles in my business. We're building a SaaS product too that's kind of invisible behind Pure Signal today, but we'll share more about that in the future. Um, oh, Jill loves the data and posts on templates. Thanks, Jill. So yes, I am, and also community led. And I kind of see this flywheel between what product led strategies and community led. And I think those two things are certainly pillars of modern go to market. We might have a lot of people here who think a third pillar or third leg of the stool is related to partnerships and ecosystem. And I think there is some data about that. And there are some nice ways that those things all fit together. So, yeah, I definitely, for me, as I get to building a SaaS company, the research we're doing at Pure Signal is very much influencing like how we're going to build our go to market. Like, yeah, I want to be like the Figmas and the Notions of the world that are getting all this efficiency and growth, and they have these great communities. Like it's very attractive the way that that a lot of these PLG companies have built. And I think it gives us sort of a way to learn from them, and we can all apply to our own business.
Yeah, and maybe before we shift from kind of the PLG partner collision, um, what are your thoughts on kind of product led and community? I think we've seen some comments about those two kind of combining in the chat, getting some love. Like, what's your view of how those two kind of play together, and how are they? Yeah, how do they work together?
Yeah, I mean, there's this awesome flywheel that happens. So a lot of product-led companies are very horizontal. So if you think about, Miro or Notion or Airtable, right? They're a horizontal product that can serve lots of personas and use cases. And so I think communities, they actually solve a problem. They help solve a problem, right? Which they help make it specific. They help educate users on how to accomplish certain goals or do certain things. And then there's this nice property where if the product is free or cheap or easy to use, you can become sort of a user and a member of the community before you're like buying enterprise licenses. So
Mhm.
I think at the top of the funnel, it's super powerful too, because you can bring people into the community and they can start participating without actually using the software, or you can bring them into the software and then sort of loop them over to the community. And there's all these ways that it sort of just feeds itself kind of both at the top of the funnel when you think about distribution. And then at the bottom of the funnel, when you think about your customers and users, like how do they deepen their value? How do you persist and expand the value that you're delivering? I think those communities play really well in that model.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue as well. It seems like the the way the community kind of pulls in the partners there, right? When you talk about templates, presumably there's some partner generated templates as well too. Um, I guess community, PLG, partnerships, they're all kind of go-to-market movements of sorts.
Mhm.
We were joking before about how there seems to be consensus that the 2000 decade was about sales automation, 2010s marketing automation, and then now 20 the like current decade, 2020s, we're hearing it's the product-led growth decade, community growth, uh, partner ecosystems. Like there's kind of a few that are jockeying for position, but it's
Right.
not going to be an either or. They're kind of coming together. So I guess with that in mind, like yeah, how do you kind of see like the product led and partner led kind of coming together there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, yeah, we've been around this space a little while, and you do see these waves. They sort of kind of 6 to 10 year waves where there's like a hot thing, and people get excited, and a bunch of vendors come in and create a lot of value. And I think there's like a lot of viable candidates. Partner and ecosystem is a good one. Community led, product led. Maybe there's a reinvention of outbound and ABM sort of coming. Um, I think that one of the common things about what you guys talk about a lot with partner led and what I see in the PLG community is that these things, they're not confined into a specific function. Like they're not a sales thing, they're not a marketing thing, they're not a content thing, they're not sort of a product thing. Like they really cut across. And it's like this more strategic way of thinking about a go to market motion where you're going to wrap together a lot of different functions into the strategy and execution of it. And I think the product led companies have done it really well because they get all the pieces moving together, right? Like they get the
Mhm.
product and the UX moving in that direction, and they get the marketing activities moving, and then they layer in the sales to like reach out to the product qualified leads. And so they're getting all these pieces really working together, and I think that it is sort of similar in partner world, and also in community, right? It's not this kind of silo. It's something that has to touch customer success and marketing and a lot of different parts of the organization. So I think that's maybe one of the exciting parallels here is that these things, they feel a little bit more strategic than just like, hey, we need like a new sales tactic or we need like a new marketing channel.
Yeah. And then to build on that, I think we were talking about this mega trend of trust and how trust is so important with these movements and how there's that parallel with product led. It's try before you buy, don't take it from us, like give it a go yourself. And then with partnerships and something that Jared and the Partner Hacker team talk about in the playbook a lot is um, partners too can kind of add that level of trust where you know the the trust in vendors seems to be decreasing, but with communities and partnerships growing, there's more people that you can kind of turn to with for like a trusted opinion. So um, I think those two kind of come together nicely to kind of complement one another.
Yeah, I think you say it well about trust because it is. I mean, I don't know how to measure this, but we feel it, right? Like we feel that buyers don't trust their business tech vendors. And we feel that that's like not, the default position isn't like, oh, I believe your promise or I believe what you're selling me. I think we really have to earn it. And Yeah, it's like you said, there's been this, I think, very long-term, multi-decade shift from vendors having all the power, right? When there was just a few on-premise software companies that you could buy from until now where we have, I mean, according to G2, it's like 100,000 different SaaS products, right? So you have
Hmm.
infinite choice. The buyer has so much control. The buyer is smarter because they can go shop on their own. And we've seen this in our consumer lives for like 20 years. But I think B2B is just slower to make this shift. Jared and I, our old boss at Drift, David Kinsell, talked a lot about this, right? This shift from, limited supply to infinite supply, and sort of vendor power to buyer power. And I think that definitely kind of sits underneath all these new waves that we talk about and all the new 3-letter acronyms that like sales and
Yeah,
marketing gets excited about.
yeah. And then also when we talk about partners and kind of product-led colliding, I think a lot of other sessions today are covering integrations. That seems to be kind of a natural starting point. Um, but you and Jared were also kind of riffing on templates and how a lot of these PLG companies are kind of creating templates. Um, any thoughts on how the product managers and the tech partnership folks in the audience can kind of think about templates as a way to kind of get distribution through partnerships?
Yeah. Well, I think it was fun talking to Jared about that because that was such an old story of how PandaDoc got into the top of the Google Docs marketplace. Jared can say in
Mhm.
chat if we're wrong, but
Yeah,
basically, you if you search Google Doc, I think it was proposal template or something, or if you search proposal template, like you see
yeah.
PandaDoc's branding there.
Head of
And so I think
sales.
that's
Yeah.
what was it?
Just like in the sales category of Google Docs. Yeah, Google Docs
Yeah,
homepage.
Google Docs homepage. So
Interesting.
what the distribution on that is just insane.
Mhm.
And so I think if you're partnering, whether you're PLG or not, like partnering with these product led companies who have massive distribution of their products and massive distribution with their communities, you can run some really interesting plays. Like, wouldn't it be amazing to be in the number one in Miro or Figma's template libraries, or wouldn't it be amazing to be number one in like Notion's template library? Like, what an opportunity if you're one of their partners. So we see like, agencies doing it with making templates and playbooks and content, and we see tech partners doing it too. So I think those are like very interesting opportunities. This template library play, it kind of fits right into the center of the fairway for PLG because it combines the community led and the product led aspects like perfectly.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Maybe before we transition to what those partnerships look like in PLG, and get into the numbers, we were chatting about kind of how important like a strategic partnership was for, I think, for both Drift and Siftrock, where it was Marketo was kind of the big dog. I think we heard about in day one yesterday as well. For a lot of companies, it seems like there's one kind of really important company to partner with, and I think for all the tech partnership professionals, product managers, trying to figure out who that is seems to be pretty important. Do you want to just quickly tell us about like that, what Marketo meant to Siftrock as a partner?
Yeah, I mean, all of our revenue basically was what it meant. I can
Wow.
go into that for sure. It was amazing. I
Yeah.
hadn't my company previous to Siftrock was called Simply Measured. It was in the social media analytics space, and we actually did a lot of product led there. We did a lot of free tools and freemium, and like we didn't call it that, but we that was our approach. We had a lot of distribution on that side. Then I went to Siftrock, and I was looking to bootstrap a company, and we were doing this very niche thing where we would handle email replies for very high volume email senders. And we after a few months, of trying a bunch of different go to market, we basically just realized like our best customers were using our Marketo integration, and our best, and we were in Launch Point, we were a small partner there, and we pretty much just took that to the logical extreme where all of our marketing was targeted to that community. We went to the meetups. We tried to meet as many people who were Marketo champions as we could. We just once we saw the ACVs were higher, the retention was better, the net retention was better. We just put like all of our effort into that one partner initiative. I mean, we ended up selling the company, not too long into its story, just a little over like 1.25 million of ARR. So we weren't that big. But I think if we had continued, we probably would have thought about how to replicate that because it was such a important part of the whatever growth we did have.
Yeah, I think it's such a great story, and there seemed to be a lot of other examples yesterday. Um, Rob Brewster was telling about how Eloqua at Salesforce was kind of the big one. For Marketo, it's probably Salesforce. I think Jared talked about how HubSpot was so big for PandaDoc as well. Like kind of the list goes on and on, but let's get to the best part. I think Jared.
I'll say one more quick point on that, which is just if you're like a fan of the Jeffrey Moore crossing the chasm thing, and like if you're trying to get those early adopters, we just found like the self-referencing nature of that when you're like focused on a certain partner community was so powerful. That was I didn't quite realize it in that way until after doing it for a year and a half or so, but that's where I think a lot of the power was is like all those people kind of knew each other and it was just this thing that kind of self-referenced.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So third and final part, I think
Joe's like, give me some stats. Don't you have data?
this well, we when we teed this up, we floated the idea of having you loved your data, and we thought that it's such a great way to kind of combine product and partner. Um, Jared said, "Love it, love Adam. He's got the best hair in SaaS," and I think great hair, but also best data in SaaS. So I think with that, like, I know you took a look into the numbers, and you were kind of looking at, you know, what could you find about partnerships at these PLG companies to kind of give folks that are in that PLG world and companies what yeah, basically like what did you find on the partnership front there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hope we get to dig into this more, Joe, together. Or maybe we can get Jill or Jared to participate. But I think we just kind of picked at the surface here. So first, we just quickly looked. PLG companies much more likely to have a community. We've talked about that. So about half of them have a community of the 650 or so that we track, versus about 30% of high growth B2B that are outside of our PLG index. So still a lot of communities there because we're tracking high growth, but it's 50% versus 30%, big difference there.
Mhm,
Um, Another one, so we're doing this by crawling the websites. So one of the things, it's like, what's prominent? Like, what do they hold up? Like when you land there, and like, what are they promoting? And if you look at the PLG companies, with 3 or more integrations kind of like prominently positioned from their
mhm,
homepage.
mhm.
25% of the PLG companies had that, like matched on that signal for us, and only 12% of B2B. So I think there's probably a lot of ways we could slice that in the future, but it kind of confirms this assumption that the PLG companies are doing a lot of integrations and putting that as a like very forward part of their strategy. If you think of like Zapier or Airtable, you can think of ones that have hundreds, right? Or like it is their strategy. So
Mhm,
that was an interesting one.
mhm.
Um, Generally, we saw both have a partner program, but it looks like the PLG companies have affiliate programs and customer referral programs and agency programs at like quite a higher rate. So if you just kind of look generally, is there a partner page? Are they talking about partners? It's about 65% of every company we track has that, which is a ton. We don't know how mature they are, how advanced. But then I thought it was kind of interesting. Like we were talking about this, Joe. It's like these PLG companies where you have self-serve, it makes sense, right? That we saw affiliate programs on about 12% of those versus about 4% for B2B more generally, which seems like a big opportunity for a lot of them, and will be interesting to see like what that 12% are doing in PLG, and like you know does that expand over time, right? Like that could be like another gear of this whole PLG community led go to market thing that we see.
Yeah, and I think on that note, like we had a look after that finding in our own data and looking at the partner stack customers that are running those kinds of programs, in particular PLG companies that are running affiliate and referral. Um, and we also find that they tend to have a leg up in terms of the commissions earned in their partner programs. It's like you said, it's in a way it's a natural fit to really get people to try the product. It's the affiliate referral partnership motion is really good at kind of getting folks to be aware and interested enough to try the product. So we see the kind of more PLG companies run those programs and also run them with success. And then yeah, so that's 3 times the rate of B2B SaaS, which is interesting. And referral was about 2 times.
Right. Which was
So
also which kind of makes sense with the whole community focus, right? That you're going to prioritize like referral programs, customer referral and partner referral, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then so the integrations, it was about 2.5 times as many um, of those kind of high volume integrations in a PLG company versus a non PLG company in B2B SaaS, which, yeah, like you said, like kind of a no brainer. It's a
Yeah.
big part of their strategy, right? So, in a way, it's the combination of the two. You have the tech partnerships, and then you also have these partner programs that are driving people to your product to give it a go and try it out.
Yeah. Totally. I'm excited to dig into it more. I'm not an expert. I know you guys are thinking about this all day. I'm learning a lot from you on this, Joe, and I think there's a lot of like case studies and role models to dig into on like who's doing multi-dimension, partner strategies. What do they look like? What do they look like in PLG versus other places? So I think it's a really fascinating part of what's going to be go to market in, the next decade.
Yeah, I think we talked about maybe a follow up piece to this, so we should work on that. I think before we wrap up, a couple of quick questions. Jill was asking about thoughts and data on marketplaces. I know that's something I was asking about as well. I think that's kind of on our to do list. So more to come there. And then Tanner was asking any data that can persuade leadership to invest more into referral affiliate partner programs. Um, I think on our end, we're diving into that data now, and PartnerStack will probably be publishing some findings on that. So I'd say Tanner, kind of stay tuned for that. Um, I know we're already a couple minutes over. I guess just to wrap up, any final thoughts for the partner community here, Adam?
I think that's I've enjoyed this, and I think that's kind of it. If people have questions on like the research or the other cuts they want us to take on the data at Pure Signal, I'd love to hear from folks.
Yeah, I'd love to see it too. Well, thanks for the time, Adam, and yeah, thanks for joining everyone, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Adam.